Well, I find myself in a spot right here this evening where I'm gonna try to catch a beaver or a couple of beavers, hopefully one or two anyway, with a 330 conibear killer trap. Of course, number one, you really got to know what you're doing when it comes to the big 330 traps. You'll get bad hurt real quick. Um, but I got a spot up here where they're coming over a levee, and I know they're here because I got them coming over every day, crossing over this levee here every day on trail cam. So I'm gonna try to get a trap or two put in right here and kind of show a little more about what I'm doing here. I've been catching them here on and off for years and years. All right, this levee is kind of a dividing point between the creek canal over here on the north side and the lake here. I think the beavers are living about halfway up this levee on the right side of the lake right here. I think they're coming out of this lake going to the creek. I'm pretty sure. I don't think they're coming from the creek to the lake because there's been a kind of an old established den slash hut back up here on the levee for several years. And on the camera they look like they're coming out of the lake here going into the creek. This is kind of a little crawfish habitat type area that's between the levee and the creek. Right following at the tip of my finger is the Mosses Creek Canal going right down through here. And there's like a big duck hole slough in that bottom right there on the other side of the creek, which is right in there. There's a lot of water out there, a lot of duck stays out there. But actually what the beavers is doing, they're coming up right here. As you can see, this is kind of in the wide open. I ain't got a whole lot of ways to guide them or whatever when it comes to snares or whatever. I've caught no telling how many beavers in snares over the years, the little cable snares. But I have hung a snare right in the wide open and caught them before, but not much. I like to have more of a trail or whatever, to go by. But you can see they're going down this other side. And it kind of narrows down right here by this tree. I don't know what I'm going to work out here just yet. And right down here at the bottom where they're sliding off in that water. And the trail's not going on across out there. I suppose they're going right through that little gap of water and they're going out that ditch into the creek. Right between that small cypress knee that's in the water and the bank on this side. I'm most likely going to hang one right there. And the big key about the big 330 conibear killer traps is here in Tennessee, they got to be under the water, or for the most part to say, as long as 2/3 of the trap is in the water, I think you're okay. I've left them a bunch of times, where there's 2 or 3 inches of the top portion of the trap sticking out of the water. That's kind of just to ensure that, a dog don't come by and stick their head in it, because if they do, they're dead instantly. That's one, and that's one. Extremely strong. I don't keep the springs compressed when I store them. All right, I got this other slide over the levee. My traps are back up there. I'm up the levee here a little further. There's another little slide right here that goes across. It goes across the levee, goes down, crosses that water, and goes out there across the ground again and drops off into the creek canal. So I got a metal rebar right here. It's actually done part of the way, or a little bit, growed into that tree root that I've used for years. As far as putting a snare here, a snare is just a cable restraint to hold the animal, and I'm gonna set one of those up right quick right here. And now I'm gonna test the loop on the snare. All right, I'm gonna make probably about a 8-inch loop and hang it out there. Alright, now what I done, that wire, I just put my cable wire in there. Now I can basically bend that wire and make my loop hang anywhere I want it to hang. It's sitting there ready to go, as you can see, just hanging out in midair. And the only other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to lay there's a tree limb right over here. I'm going to drag this tree limb over to block just a little bit of this trail off to discourage him from coming over this way to the left. So right there is our cable restraint. And we got that trap set over there, and we got this one here. So we'll return in the morning and see what's happened, see what goes on tonight. Alright, our 2 conibear traps hasn't been touched. Very, very surprisingly, I decided to drop my snare in that other trail up there. It looks like I got that old big beaver. But one trick about a snare is don't never cable one off to a small tree or a small to medium sized tree, because a beaver will eat the tree down and leave. In this case right here. So I like hooking mine to 5/8 pieces of rebar, 5.5, 6 foot long, driving them in the ground. But like that piece of rebar I showed you the other day, right there. That's been there so long that tree roots kind of grow to the side of it. That's a big beaver right there, folks. Pretty good size. And he's obviously just got in here pretty quickly, because he hasn't tore the place up like many of them has that I've caught. See if I can see his tail. I heard the wood duck slide in on the water in the creek out there just then. That's a pretty good sized beaver. They will have a tendency to want to jump at you a little bit when you approach them, you know, right out on the ground like this. So, yep, that's a pretty good sized beaver. But they, I let them stay here once in a while, and they'll get started eating on the trees around the levee and just, you know, start to ruin things. If it wasn't for chewing on trees, I would let them go here, because I don't have no situation here to where they have to build dams, or they do build dams, because I don't have nothing for them to dam up here right in this location. Now some other places I do, you know, but here I don't. But in other spots I have hit them so blooming hard hunting them at night and putting out traps that they ain't bothering me in the other spots right now. He's blowing at me now. Yeah, he's a big one, all right. I've been in situations before to where I have put killer traps and snares out, you know, at the same time. And of course, I have faith in the 330 conibear killer traps now. I do. You know, when you got heavy trails where they're running and stuff, a lot of it's in water. But I have caught them in snares many times when I thought I was going to end up catching them in the killer traps first. But, you know, if you got trails, like this trail crossing the levee right here, you know, if you got just any little tight spot by a tree or whatever, you know, you can literally tear them up with snares. You got to know, you know, exactly where to hang that snare and what size loop. You don't want the loop too big, about an 8-inch loop. I think 7 to 8-inch loop, about 2 inches off the ground. What I always had best luck with, seemed like. That is a big beaver right there. Big old tail. Yep. They got a beautiful fur. Alright, I got another little situation here I'm going to show you. As far as an example of where you can set a snare. Right there is where I just caught the beaver, right on the other side of that tree. I've got another little spot right here that they're using sometime, but not much. But I see where they have used it. You can see right between this bank and that cypress knee. Right there. That would be where I would hang my loop, right beside that cypress knee. But I would not cable it off to that cypress knee. He'll chew that cypress knee down, he'll leave. But it's coming up the bank here, crossing the road, and going right down on this side. As you can see, there's a little hole right under those weeds. That would be where I would hang my loop if I put a snare on this side. And I would definitely drive down a piece of rebar to cable it off to. But this one here that I caught, he just got in this, I suppose, because I've been getting them on the camera like, I don't know, you know, 30 minutes to an hour after daylight in the morning. So he hasn't, yeah, he's freshened the ground up, but he hasn't really damaged the surface of the ground here. It still pretty much looks just like it did. It almost looks like that I took a leaf rake and just raked the leaves off of it. So, you know, it'll be easy to continue using snares right here. When I want to, I'll just have to, you know, put another pile of brush or something right over here like it was here when I set the snare. But that's the thing, they're going to clear everything out. You know, when you catch one, they're going to go round and round and round. He would have had a big round donut dug out right here if that tree hadn't been here. And if that tree would have been smaller, I about guarantee you he would try to date it down. I'm going to leave the traps alone. Who knows? I may come back in the morning or 2 mornings from now, or I may come back a week from now and may have one in one of those. That's the thing about those killer traps. If you got them in a good spot, just go off and leave them sitting. You know, I've had one to sit for a week before one finally gets in it. Until next time, from wherever out here in the great outdoors, I encourage all the rest of you out there to get outdoors every chance that you possibly can. I'm Garen Carlin, Mosses Creek Outdoors, and I'll see you next time.